Ladies and gentlemen, this is... Didn't I fix this? Did I not? Am I just off-center? I'm a little off-center. This is Season 4, Episode 21. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. This is the episode in which Rainbow Dash has to learn the history of the Wonderbolts in order to apply for what is the equivalent of the ASVAB, make sure I get that acronym correctly, in order to get in, and she fails miserably at most of the studying methods because Rainbow Dash probably has a degree of a learning disorder. Now, this episode was written by Amy Keating Rogers, which is the very first thing I'm commenting on, because her son actually has a form of, and I'm quoting here directly, debilitating form of epilepsy that causes him severe global development delay. You can actually learn more about this if you go to sorenrogers.blogspot.com and hear a few stories about that and how she's had to cope and accommodate with that and blah, blah, blah. And she apparently wrote some of that into this episode, and frankly, it shows. Whoops. Hang on. Get my notes up here. I've got so many notes up right now. There we go. I do like how in the very teaser they actually showcase Rainbow's observational abilities. And then they just kind of forget it and move on, like you do. Typical Scooby-Doo kind of a plot there. So Rainbow is trying to join the Wonderbolt Reserves. Not the main core, but the Wonderbolt Reserves. Can I just say I really like that? Rarity... I don't know. Rarity and Dash both have, for lack of a better term, a career path throughout the course of the series. And I really enjoy that. I like the fact that Rarity gets more and more well-known, more and more connections, more people, more shops open up. Then she has other people managing those shops. And, you know, that's Rarity's arc, and she's still working on that. Dash has a similar thing where she applies at the academy, and then she does a decent job at the academy, and then she gets to come in as a reserve person. And I like that because rather than them just, you know, you're a Wonderbolt, which would be stupid. That would be Star Trek 2009 is what that would be. Instead, it's a nice degree of progression as they work their way up to their eventual goal, right? Totally with that. I was actually thinking about it, though. To my knowledge, those two are the only ones who really have that kind of career path growth. Pinkie Pie's already exactly where she wants to be. Applejack's already exactly where she wants to be. And that just leaves two more. Now, I'm not sure what I think of Fluttershy and Twilight's career paths. Because Narset is donating towards Drakengard. And honestly, that just completely throws everything out the window. Thank you very much, Narset, as always. Very much appreciated. Now that we've pulled that back out of the window, Fluttershy does have a degree of progression, but hers is far more personal about her deciding to get better of working with others and that sort of thing. And we have seen that her ability to cope and work with animals and that kind of thing is something that gets more and more renowned as the series goes on. So her skills do kind of expand a bit, and her... I hesitate to call it a career, but it's more like her hobby is something that she gets more work with going forwards. Which just leaves Twilight. Now, Twilight's the most interesting to me because she is the least interesting one in terms of career path. Because as SA2K points out, she doesn't have a career path at all, does she? She does have escalation. You know, she starts off as the student, and then she gets the wings, and then... Well, there's going to be more stuff in the future that I'm aware of, but the point is, her responsibilities slowly escalate as time goes on, and that is the kind of thing that she has to deal with, and whether she does a good job of that or not, that's a little more debatable. Either way, just something that I was thinking about, because this is another step for this, and I find myself wondering, Rarity clearly earns her path, right? Yeah, Twilight feels like, I hate to pull Crusader Kings into this, but imagine you're doing Crusader Kings, and you reach out to a young person, and you take that young person as your ward, right? And you groom them, and you train them, and you take care of them until they're intended to be your successor. That's what Twilight feels like to me. Twilight feels like an adopted princess. No pun intended, who is intended to eventually replace the queen. That's what that feels like to me. But anyways, yeah, I do find myself wondering if any royal connections were done in order to help Rainbow Dash in her particular arc, since otherwise her arc would have stalled until she actually joins the Wonderbolt. And her being a part of the reserves is actually going to come up in a future episode, which I happen to really like. So we'll get there when we get there. Really, Lord Harrimont? Well, all right, now you're bloody murder. And then I throw you out the window. Okay. Now I take over all your lands and things. Okay, there we go. Why can't you adopt in CK? That's stupid. That's actually stupid. Adoption was a really common thing historically for people to put them up as successors and to prop them up as this is now legally my child. MLP, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, suicide. Anyways, so career paths. So Twilight gushes about the idea of helping Rainbow study. Admission moment. I love studying. Now, I don't like school, but I love studying. I love doing what I call a deep dive. Hey, Jason Bauer. I love really digging into a topic and just trying to learn everything I can about it. I love learning in general. The catch is, of course, you like to study what you like, right? Although, well, I don't want to get into that. But the point is, I have in the past had to curb my own enthusiasm in a similar manner to how Twilight does here, because I love helping other people study too, and that's probably when the inner geek, like the real geek in me, comes out. And you think, well, Laura, you talk about all sorts of stuff like Star Trek. No, that's not the real geek here. The real geek is when I start gushing about the exact natures by which you do input delay during development of a task in order to make sure that a certain sequence happens at the right time when the AI is triggered 3 frames later, and I'm going to stop here, but I think you get the idea. I can go into it, is what I'm trying to say. You should see the spreadsheets I have. Anyways, and I'm kind of interested in everything, too. That's what I wanted to mention. Because most people, there's topics I'm not interested in, of course. There's like 5 or 6, I think, something like that. But I like studying a huge amount of stuff. Anyways, I'm going to have a topic. So she loves studying, right? So what are the studying methods? I actually wrote them down as we went through the episode. Studying method number 1, highlighting. Now, this is actually a very interesting thing, and I have a feeling Miss Rogers actually did this on purpose. Highlighting is bullet pointing done right. Now, you're probably thinking, what does that mean? Well, see, bullet pointing syndrome isn't actually bullet pointing, as weird as that may sound. Bullet pointing is supposed to, it's almost never used this way, prompt. Let me explain what I mean by that. And I can do this very easily. So recently, the Arkham City rumination went out, right? These are my notes on Arkham City. This is it for the whole rumination, for the whole game. That's all I wrote down. Every single one of these is effectively a highlight. In short, what I wrote down was a few words and a few lines that prompt. So I write down Act 2, Raish, and Strange. And that's all I wrote down. That's the highlight, right? Because now I look at that and I remember everything else attached to that. It's intended as a prompt, in other words, not an end point. That's what bullet point syndrome is. When someone looks at this and writes a story that is Raish and Strange in Act 2, rather than knowing the full details and depth that are attached to that. Make sense? So that's highlighting as a study method. Yeah, you read the whole thing, and then you highlight to remember the highlight, and that's what triggers the other memories, connected memories, okay? Now, I want you to remember that, because that's going to be important coming up. So, hang on, Baron. Hang on. Bear with me. I don't study in any one method, by the way. In fact, I have used all 7 methods we're going to discuss here as studying. So, method number 2, lectures. Now, this is actually fairly simple, and lol at the idea of can't we just watch the movie? Hi, Braywin. But lecture is simply being told the information in some kind of manner. Now, lectures can vary wildly from being incredibly boring to being incredibly engaging, but the whole idea is someone is just straight up telling you the information, and it relies almost entirely on 2 factors, whether or not that tends to sink in. Factor number one, the nature of the topic and how much you're interested in it. And factor number two, how it's presented. There is a gigantic gap in between good and bad presentation of a lecture. Why am I so far over to the frickin'... Why is this the center? God, my camera's moved. Anyways, yeah, presentation is huge when it comes to a lecture. And that's a big deal. So we've had connecting memories, we've had spoken stuff. Okay. By the way, quick thing, they mentioned this several times throughout the work. Notice that this is as close to we've ever had a discussion about the creation of the military, aka the Wonder Guards, within this setting. You'll notice that it was actually made in direct relation, and direct reaction to what happened with Luna. Now, they don't clarify on that point. They don't add any details there. But we could speculate based on that. Why do you think the banishment of Luna directly led to the creation of what is effectively a military? Now, I can think of several options here. One of the ones that I've heard someone say in the past was, well, now that they are one less princess, they need more people to defend people. It's also worth noting, by the way, that since we know this from the history of the setting, Celestia used to have an actual full-tilt, not Celestia, excuse me, Equestria used to have a full-tilt military until Equestria was actually founded. And that was the Pegasi in general, right? We've already learned that from the history of the founding of Equestria. But we also know that that military kind of stopped being a thing by the time Celestia took over, which means this is effectively making a new paramilitary group, whatever you want to call that, which is the Wonderbolts, right? And they focus heavily on them being a performance group, which is obvious because the Wonderbolts are a performance group. It's just they have things like colonels and generals, and I feel like at least part of this is kind of built on the backbones of the original actual military. So Raskor says, yeah, like the Blue Angels, as we paralleled many times. Raskor says, you know, if someone goes rogue, you need someone to deal with this. Baron says maybe we need someone to help rebuild. It's like Top Gun. God, I haven't watched Top Gun in a long time. I like to think that this is a combination of problems here. In addition to the fact that, you know, the situation is weak or whatever. Basically, I like to think that this is the wake-up moment, right? I don't have an official term for that like I do the Vulcan moment, but this is kind of a similar concept. The Vulcan moment is when, you know, you encounter someone else and they're super peaceful and harmonic and awesome and everything's great, and you have this massive societal and cultural revolution of amazingness. The wake-up moment is when you encounter someone else external and they beat the crap out of you, and that serves as a, oh god, I need to defend myself. In video game terms, that's usually called a wake-up boss. So this is my general thinking. Celestia got the crap beaten out of her by Luna and was like, oh, and had to do something about that. And that was the wake-up moment, and that led to the pushing for the idea of the Wonderbolts. That's just my take. I don't know. Now, again, more performance art than actual military. But I will say this, SA2K mentions there was no military when Discord was initial ruling, which makes perfect sense to me because the military is extremely strict and organized and structured, and I mean, come on. Anyways, either way, moving on with the lessons. Oh yeah, by the way, I love how they're called the Earth Unicorn Pegasi Guard, by the way. Which is amusing in its own right, since I bring that up because, remember, we keep talking about the Wonderbolts, but before the Wonderbolts there was the EUP. And the EUP were not just Pegasi. The Wonderbolts were a branch of the EUP. So, I'm sorry, I should have been more clear here, because the EUP is the actual military, and the Wonderbolts are, you know, the fanciful pilots that happen to be a part of the EUP. Just interesting stuff. And yes, some very obvious Air Force parallels are very obvious. In fact, even the uniforms they wear are basically straight up USAF, right? Especially the older ones. Anyways. That could be a thing, kind of keeping training on a high level, we add, so that deployment would be an easier thing. Anyways, yeah, so next tip Next learning tip, flashcards. Now what's interesting is flashcards are actually just the highlighting method in a different format. Once again, it's about having a brief amount of information that you just flash, that you look at briefly, and that prompts the memory, and that enables you to think forward. A little more visual, because you can put whatever you want on the flashcard, but once again, this is still the prompted memory form of learning. I don't actually like flashcards, by the way, personally. Moving on. Looking at my notes here. Oh, I meant to mention one other thing. The first performance that they did, which actually led to the creation of the Wonderbolts, as dubbed by General Firefly. As they were performing, apparently the energy that they created was so vibrant, it actually literally made magical lightning, which flew over the thing, hence the term Wonderbolt. I wonder if that's literally friendship magic there. You know, harmonic resonance, just creating a magical effect on the spot. Because we do see that friendship magic is a literal, tangible thing, and we will see that at the end of Season 4 as well. Just food for thought. Anyway, so that's flashcards. This is a good time to talk about problem children. Now, I'm definitely putting this in quote-unquotes because this is, well, this is what it is, right? No, I just realized I could do something here. Hang on just a second. Let's use this a little bit. There we go. This is actually a long topic, and I'm debating if I really want to dive into this one. Problem kids. I've seen this a lot. Now, this is not universally true, but a problem child is someone who is acting out in class, right? They're shooting spitwads, or rocking back and forth in the chair, or complaining about lunch, or wanting to go to recess, or whatever, right? Problem kids. And I keep putting that in quote-unquotes very on purpose. Because, well, while there is such a thing as a problem child, I don't think that's what we're talking about. What we're talking about is kids who are just not engaged. They're bored. Remember, this is a topic Rainbow is interested in, and she has a vested interest in learning about. So those two elements are covered. It's just, it's not connecting with her, so she's bored, so she acts out. Right? I only bring this up because this is one of the reasons why I bang on so much about the importance of good teaching and good teachers. It's really, really important to actually care and pay attention and notice and try to, as the episode's main message is, teach in different methods for different people. It's one of the reasons why standardized schooling really should be bare bones. Like a starting point rather than this is your education. But yeah. It's also one of the reasons I tend to like the idea, however unfeasible it is in practical application, of actually doing apprenticeships, because an apprentice can actually be taught specific to how the apprentice needs to be taught, because you're teaching them. Looking at my notes here. Fluttershy shows up and is awesome, of course. And oh, absolutely, I say take it. Rainbow is definitely one of the class clowns, right? So Rarity. Fluttershy brings up teaching option number 4. What's funny is this is probably my personal, I'd say my second favorite teaching method, or learning method. It's actually something I legitimately want to do myself with regards to the extant, my own setting. It's audiovisual presentation. Storytelling in simplicity. All you need to do is look up any YouTube channel you've ever liked where they discuss the story and history of something, and you know what this is. It's usually stylized, like, say, stick figures, or maybe little cardboard cutouts, or maybe, you know, something else like that. And every single one of them, it usually does a version of events rather than the literal repetition of the events to add to the presentation value. See Oversimplified for an example of this. Extra History would also qualify as something like this. This is a fairly common thing. And its value is debated, of course, but a lot of people do tend to respond to this kind of audiovisual stimuli. Looking at my notes here. By the way, I love Spike as the director. He's like, yes, go. Anyways, so Fluttershy tries that. That doesn't actually end up working out. So this then leads to music. This is pure audio, of course. Now, what's funny is music is the kind of thing I see used very, very infrequently as an actual teaching method. Yeah, overly sarcastic. That's another good one. The problem with music is, well, I say the problem is, the thing is, it's not really music as a teaching method so much as it is audio about a teaching method. If you've ever heard a rhyme that teaches you about the days of the week, or helps you to remember the planets in the system, or anything like that, any kind of thing that's some kind of little audible method that you speak out loud and helps mimetically help you remember something, that is the method that Pinky is using here. So, again, well, this is a bit of a side grade kind of a thing, and obviously is mostly being done for the joke of, hey, look, 90s rap, but that is the overall approach that she's using here. By the way, 90s rap. This then leads to option 7. Option 6. Sorry, I skipped over one. This leads us to option 6. Pure visual. This is a very, very common one. In fact, this is one of the most common ones that exists. I would say the overwhelming majority of teaching is pure visual. And in fact, I should have gotten this ready in advance. Give me just a second. I'm going to pull up an image here to get across my point very quickly. But yeah, you ever heard the ABC song? That's the music audio version in a nutshell. So this is going to be in here. Well, they don't actually do that in this one, Baron, at least not that I'm aware of. Where's... Hang on, I'm sorry. I should have had this ready. I didn't. It's in my backup files. Because of course it is. Should be in the TNG stuff. You gotta give me a moment because I gotta spin up my externals every time I go access them. Here we go. Here we go. No? No. Really? Okay, so whatever. I don't know where the images are because I've moved them, because I'm done with them. But I put together some graphs for a video that's going live in May of next year. And those graphs are, I was just going to show you literally what I'm talking about with regards to having visual. Having a literal picture that you can look at and be like, aha, this is the visual storytelling. Now, obviously Rarity does this in terms of a fashion show. But that is what she's doing. She's trying to prompt visual stimuli. If you've ever seen someone do slideshows or graphs or pictures or anything of that variety, that's this method. It's common for a reason. We are visual beings, and so we tend to learn visually. So I'm kind of with that. It's also why the audio-visual one tends to be so strong as well. This then leads to AJ's method. Method 7. Experience. It's funny because AJ's like, I don't have a method at all. And then she says exactly what her method of learning is. Just doing it over and over. Just working something. You go into a job for the first time, and you know that feeling, right? You're all nervous, you're not sure what you're going to do, you're just a little bit freaked out. Fast forward a month of doing that every day or 5 days a week or whatever, and it's just become rote at that point. Just straight experience is a valid learning method. The only downside is, of course, that learning method takes the longest amount of time by far. However, it is also worth noting that statistics tend to show, this is of course very variable, but statistics tend to show that that is the kind of method that will work the best and for the longest period of time. Just straight up experience will teach us better than almost everything else. Obviously that's not true for everyone. And again, it's not really applicable in all situations, as it wasn't for Rainbow. She doesn't have, that much time to just go over the information over and over, right? So this then leads her to rushing off in frustration. There's also option 8, kinetic, which is something you do a lot with very, very young children, especially. You allow a child to actually physically grab something, interact with it, that kind of a thing. It allows them to learn as well. That's another thing I just want to mention. The episode doesn't mention this, but I just wanted to mention that because, taking care of kids. Words. So she rushes off. This leads to something really, really cool here. As she's flying overhead, the camera actually pans down. First of all, it's a great shot. It's actually very detailed, and everything that we are later told is there is actually shown early on. In addition to this, they do some really cool stuff with the shadows. Like, we can actually literally see the shadows of Twilight and Rainbow going over things. It's just great. But yeah, you can see Rainbow looking down periodically as well. And then she recites it. So that's the Crusader kids coming out. That's him selling the apples, blah, blah, blah. And of course, there was the person nearly hit. Rainbow Dash is paying attention. I'm not sure which learning method this is exactly. Having what is effectively a very observant skill in memorizing what you see. I don't know what to actually call that. I suppose that doesn't quite qualify. But it is something that she does and she processes without even thinking about it. And I want to stop and talk about that point very quickly, because you can tell a study method works for you when you don't have to think about it working for you, when it just works. The end. When it just happens, right? Thank you very, very much, Eberron. As always, appreciate the sub. Thank you. If you know where you want that one to go, let me know, please. Right? I'm sure a lot of you actually know what I'm talking about if you've ever studied in one method or another. And it's just, it just clicks. You don't even think about it. And it just retains there, and you just use it going forwards. I wonder if the cloud turning into a rain cloud because of Rainbow Dash is because the clouds are adaptive to her, or if because that's just Pegasi magic in a nutshell, that the Pegasi in general can interact with clouds in a way that affects them. I mean, we do know that they cause the weather, so I kind of think it's the latter, personally. I know it's done for a visual gag, but considering we've seen that Pegasi literally control the weather, I kind of think there's some Pegasi magic going on there. That's just me, though. So then we get to the awesome part of the episode. Now, you may have heard me mention this is actually one of my favorite episodes. While this is a good message show, you know, we've got the whole thing about not every learning method is for everyone, and we've got the idea that, well, just because you aren't learning in the method that you are being told, it does not make you stupid. And that is a damned good message that plenty of kids need to learn because, well, at least here in the States, schools suck. Obviously, that's variable dependent on the county you're in, and the school you're in, and the amount of money that that particular school has. But schools tend to suck, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if there are many, many, many people out there who were told that they were dumb, or that they were stupid, or that they were a problem child, or they're a class clown, and either never learned or never had an opportunity to learn, or stopped trying to learn because they were being taught the wrong way by the wrong people who didn't care or didn't have the money to do so. It's a good message to have because, well, I mean, again, it's for kids who need to know that, and it's for adults who need to know that from the other side of the equation. Yeah. That being stated, the other thing I really like about this, and the thing that really, really explains why I would live in Equestria without hesitation if given a choice, is the fact that the entire town pulled together to help her learn. God, that just hits me every time I see that. It's such an emotional moment, seeing them bother, seeing them care, seeing them actually put forth the effort and work into helping one of their own. It's also a very well done scene. If you pay attention, they do the flat... This is brilliantly crafted. Unless you know to look for it, the first flight just looks like a normal flight and nothing's unusual about it at all. And then Rainbow just starts reciting facts and you're like, wait, what? Because Twilight does not obviously look like she's looking down. And Rainbow is looking down because she's sad. So there's nothing unusual in the first flight. It's only when you know that Twilight is checking to make sure everyone's there and that Rainbow is watching everything as they go over that you realize what's happening. Then they rewind and go through the flashback and show what both of them were checking down below. And we actually see the whole village doing what they could in order to help Rainbow learn this stuff, which is just incredibly heartwarming. And it's not. I like that it's not just her friends. It could have easily just been the main four at this point. It could have just been the four. But instead, they pull in random people because random villagers were willing to dress up and get this stuff together. And all basically be in position in a line, in the line of the flight they were going to do. You know, this took some prep work, although Twilight's good at that, of course. And yeah, Rainbow's expression when she realizes that she learned is ecstatic. I love it. By the way, I timed it. The first flight and the second flight are only off of each other by 1 second. It's actually a little less than a second. So they actually timed it, too. Oh, yeah, by the way, Rarity plays Luna. Ha ha ha. Yeah, I also like how Twilight is shown to me not be a good teacher. Not the first time that's happened, and I believe that's going to come up again in the future as well. Either way, good message. Very heartwarming scene. I very much like this episode, as I think I have made very clear through my recitation here. I'm willing to give this at least a red. I'm thinking a red. I'm thinking just a straight up red. This doesn't... Whoops, that's the wrong thing. I don't think this quite breaks into purple territory. Purple's something else, but I do think this deserves a red rating. God, Amy Keating's Rogers track record is just strange looking at it there. I did have one continuity counter, just for the overall career arc, for lack of a better way to call it. So I will go ahead and add that. Where's the counters? There they are. There we go. What's this? Oh, that's nothing. What's this? That's that. That's nothing. Sorry, just checking my things here. Yeah, this is a great episode. There's a reason I was looking forward to this one. I'm even looking forward to the next one, too. Let me go ahead and pull this up here. What is... Yep, Trade Ya. It's time to talk about slavery. In about 20 minutes.